nobody is coming. Nobody's coming, Lindsay. Nobody's
Nobody.
coming. Okay, I am Carl. I am an addict alcoholic in my sobriety days, August 22nd, 2014.
I am Lindsey. I am an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is September 6th, 2015.
And this is SoberPod.
Soberpod.com. Yeah, SoberPod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.
SoberPod is a podcast dedicated to the idea that one addict helping another is crucial to building a life in recovery. That's kind of why we're doing this. So join us this season as we read from our books, 366 Effing Days Sober. That's this book. If you're watching the video, it's on the camera. And then also you can get Lindsey's book, which is Spirit Vigilante, and you can get that by going to The Spirit Vigilante as well, or thespiritvigilante.com. So Lindsey, how you doing? How was your week?
I'm doing great. Yeah. How about you?
You're always so calm. I'm always so hyper. Yeah. I'm so hyper. So did you do anything fun? Did you go out with people? Did you do all that stuff?
You know, I went to this thing on Friday night that was called Five Rhythms. I think it might be like an international thing, and it was a dance thing, but very different from what you would think. It was like a full embodiment experience, and no one's talking, and there's just this kind of tribal music playing. So that was interesting. That wasn't something you do every day.
You do some of the weirdest shit.
I'm
sorry. I just don't do. I mean, I am open to those things, but I'm just maybe not. I don't seek them out. You know what I mean? Like if they came across, like, you know what I mean?
No,
like if I just suddenly found myself doing it, I would do it.
So weird. I'm so weird. You want to know what I did Saturday?
Did you seek this thing out? Did you seek it out? What did you do? How did you?
No, that's the scariest thing. Like these things seek me out. Someone invited me to it because they're like, I think Lindsey would like this. And I did.
Yeah, like again, I got invited like Eckhart Tolle, right? Like, which is fine, you know.
Oh yeah,
because I guess because I'm a philosophical person in general,
right.
But it's just not something I like. I have my own interest in,
right,
yeah.
Right.
I just don't know if I would. Yeah, it's weird.
On Saturday, I went painting with pigs.
Okay. You're gonna have to explain it.
So we poured paint on a canvas and then put the canvas in a Ziploc bag and then put in like the pig's pen these Ziploc bag paintings and then put applesauce on top of the Ziploc bag so that they root around and put their nose in it and their paws, and then they lick the applesauce and then it makes a beautiful painting done by the pig.
Well, at least I was hoping it didn't go where I thought it was going to go there for a second. I was like, and then we put a pig inside the plastic bag.
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah,
it was just vegan. It was a vegan animal sanctuary, and the pigs painted.
Okay, so then, God, I know you don't have the painting available, but please feel free to post that shit on Instagram. I gotta see that shit. I just got it. Okay.
So yeah, I had a good weekend. If that's like,
that's interesting as fuck. I mean, it's great. I mean, I just went to water polo games and I went to improv class on Sunday. I did that.
How's improv going?
Well, I think improv should come with people like me anyway. I think it should come with like therapy in addition to the improv.
Conjunction.
I think I should, because I have such a low self-esteem, and what I don't think that people understand is like I can sit there and take the criticism, but it like fucking hurts. You know what I mean? Like there's a level of like, because you're like being creative.
So they're giving you feedback.
Yes, they are.
Ooh.
And it does not feel good sometimes. So I think that there should be added therapy like an added option, like, hey, come take our improv classes, and you could.
Right.
Would you like to add an additional 2 hours of therapy per class?
there's a business opportunity if I've ever heard one.
That's what
I can just hear you at the class being like, "Who the hell are you to tell me?" Like,
you.
show me your improv degree.
Well, these people have been doing it a long time, so there's that.
Okay.
So you kind of got to give it up a little bit. And again, I haven't been doing it. I don't know anything. You know what I mean? I try.
But it's hard
all I know
because it's your art.
Yeah, it's just taking criticism, period, is hard for me like that.
I know. Yeah.
So, you question all your life choices, on the drive home. And then
and then you pay for it and do it all over again.
Yeah, exactly. And then actually after the showcase, I'm sure it'll be in a few weeks, right? I'll be so jazzed to do it all over again that I'll sign up immediately. Right? Like, I want to do that again. I want to torture myself more. This is awesome. Okay. So enough about that. Okay, what I wanted. So we've been recording these like a week in advance just to try and get like ourselves in a good spot sometimes. So in case we miss a week or whatever, so we have time to fill in. But let me just say, if you are listening to this, you're listening to this on, I don't know, sometime, like whatever, July 6th, 7th, somewhere around there, 8th maybe. And you survived 4th of July in the United States. So congratulations, give yourself a hand. And if you did relapse, I'm sorry. And if you're like coming back from like, oh shit, what did I do kind of thing, you were standing around without a drink in your hand on the 4th of July, and your uncle came up to you and said, hey buddy, here, have one on me. And you popped the top and drank that shit. Well, I'm sorry, but
we still love you.
Yeah, if you're starting over, you're just starting over. That's it. Like, you didn't lose the time that you had. You gained a lot of experience. You gained a lot of knowledge about your condition and who you are. And you know what? Welcome back to reality. Oh, snap, back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity.
There goes gravity.
So,
yes.
So what that does is that falls into the reading that we have for July 7th, which is probably the best message I could give to somebody who is probably somebody who's like in and out of relapse, who has like tried multiple programs, who has kind of done this thing. And, I interviewed back in the day in 2021, maybe, I interviewed Dr. Alan Berger, who wrote a book called Emotional Sobriety. And if you guys are interested, you can go back and listen to all that stuff. But Dr. Alan Berger, he wrote this book, and I read it, and then I interviewed him on it. But one of the things that he talked about in his story, I think he was in Hawaii. He was like in the service, I think. This is like years ago. He dude's got like 40, 50 years of sobriety, which is unheard of. And he goes into his therapist or psychologist office, and right above the office door as he entered in, the words, "Nobody is coming," were, above the door. Like, nobody's coming to save you, basically, is what it said. And this gave him this is kind of his theme for recovery. And so I wrote about that after, reading a lot of stuff. And here it is. Are you ready, Lindsey?
I'm ready. It kind of reminds me that I just have to say about like, no one is coming to save you. It's like on the doorway, it kind of reminds me like, all hope abandon these
all hope
enter here, right?
Oh, girl.
Yeah.
Which is from a song too from Gaslight Anthem as well, right? If you listen to Gaslight Anthem, there's a song. Song lyrics.
Shut up.
Yeah, there's song lyrics for that, or it could be Brian.
No, yeah. But you have we talked about Gaslight Anthem before? Because
no,
they're my favorite
you
band.
Mentioned it.
Brian,
you mentioned it before, yeah.
I have mentioned it though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you know of them, which is so weird and obscure. Okay, there'll be another whole episode on Gaslight Anthem.
Okay.
Right,
okay. Here we go. So July 7th. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Nobody is coming to save you. How many times have you heard that already? It's ridiculous how much we stand around in hopes that someone will swoop us up and take control of our lives and clean up the mess we have made. This learned helplessness can keep us frozen and looking outward for solutions to our problems. This mentality can keep us dependent on others and cause us to listen to bad advice, take the wrong actions that are ultimately unhealthy for ourselves and others. So let's get this straight. Nobody is coming to save you. You are it. This is not to say that others are not there to help. This is to say that it is ultimately up to you to get the things that you need. Ask the questions, seek your answers, and devour the knowledge and wisdom that others are willing to provide to you. Don't hesitate. Your actual rescue starts today. Reflections. Are you doing all you can for your recovery today? And I'm going to say most of the time my answer is no. But
and you're going to say yes.
No. Are you doing all you can for your recovery today? Daily challenge. Start reading a book, physical, Kindle, or otherwise. I'm really just trying to self-promote there. And don't forget, 366 Epic Days Over and Spirit Vigilante are available at Amazon.com.
You need to hyperlink it.
Yeah. Please check out the show notes for those quickly available books.
You can subscribe here.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Lindsey. So what do you think about that reading? What does it bring up for you? What is the journey that it takes you on?
I love it. It's interesting for me because I think my whole life I thought this was a women's limited to female.
Oh, you calling me a bitch? You son of a...
No, not at all. It was like refreshing to hear that.
Son of a bitch. You know what though? You know what? For the men, it's about give me my mama, right? I want somebody to take care of me. I want my mama.
That's true. There we go.
It's a big part of that too. So yeah.
I bet. No, so it's kind of refreshing to be like, huh, okay.
It's
not limited. It's totally not what I was saying. If anything, it just showed how limited my perspective of reality is. No, I mean, there's this idea called the Cinderella complex, and there's a really good book written about it by Colette Downing. And it's the same idea, but it's coming from the female perspective of like, oh, I can play and experiment and do stuff, but it's okay because at the end of the day, someone's gonna come and save me and figure out my life for me, So I guess it's just, it's interesting to hear the male perspective of that. But I think that learned helplessness can keep us frozen, and we don't have to figure out our own solutions. And it limits us though, because, and we'll get into, we're talking about Independence Day and freedom. And we think that gives, I don't know if we think that it gives us freedom to think that someone's going to come in and save us, but it's limiting our freedom terribly.
Yeah, we just don't know it. I think
right.
You said learned helplessness, and people don't understand that statement. Like I even had like my, my sponsor mention, like, I don't understand what learned helplessness is. And it's like, he's a man's man, right? So it's like, so he doesn't really understand that he's not a bitch, if you know what I mean. Exactly. So, so learned helplessness is the best way that I can describe it is this, and I kind of know this from like this is my personal experience too, but I'm going to give the analogy because this is how I understand it, which is when baby elephants are trained in the world, they are initially, when they're born, they are chained up with big, thick, heavy chains because they're girthy creatures, man. They can move some stuff. And then so they're chained and they are secured and they cannot escape no matter what they try, right? And they do try. They try a million different ways, but they're chained with these big chains. And as they progress and they get older, the chains that they use to keep them secure actually get less and less secure, to the point is when they are an older, mature elephant, you could literally just tie them up with a thin rope and they won't resist it anymore because they know throughout their entire lives, when they've been chained up, it has been impossible to free themselves, right? And that's literally learned helplessness, right? And we all kind of go through a little bit of that, of like when we try to test the waters, when we try to grow out of our, shed our skin, quote unquote. We're going to go back to your book and the snakes. We all go through a little process of that. And for me, I mean, I felt like I was beat down beyond so learned helplessness for me is exactly that. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to regulate myself to being this, alcoholic, because to me that works. I'm just going to do that. And that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my days. So that's kind of part of that learned helplessness. It's like, oh, I'm just going to be this dude that, I'm going to go over here and drink my shit and fuck it. I tried. I'm not going to try anymore.
Right. It's almost like an apathy or an indifference that becomes, learned helplessness. I believe the term came from an experiment they did with dogs and shocks. And, the dog would get shocked every time it tried to leave the cage. And then there was no cage, no shock, and the dog still wouldn't even try to leave because it got shocked so many times that it was like, so it's similar to the elephant thing, but an actual tested theory. I forget who it was, someone probably with for child development or something. But so it's really like becoming prisoner. And for us as humans, I think what that looks like, our version of trying again and again, whatever that is, we're like, oh, couldn't figure it out. I'm a helpless alcoholic. So
yeah.
I tried and the world's not working for me.
That's why I always, when I hear, stuff like, and I know other people think it too, it's like, and I think you even mentioned it a couple times, like when we say, I'm Carl, I'm an alcoholic, or I'm in a meeting like that, and I say those things, it's like I'm kind of like, I'm taking that role on a little bit. And there's a way in which you can either empower yourself with those words or a way in which it continues to portray you as helpless. And so I used to always hear and again, just same like when I used to hear the slogan, easy does it, I used to always think, oh, like that's easy does it because you're a helpless alcoholic, like you can't do things that other people can do. You suck, and that's kind of how I used to actually hold that mentality for my alcoholism and for even my own mental health, my own self, all that stuff. I was called crazy. I was called like insane. And that's what kind of, I like that. I put that in the jacket copy on the book. Like, people called you all these names, but the truth is you're still trying to do better. You're still trying to do good, and you can overcome this mentality. Right. So, a big part for me of the nobody is coming, there's two folds to this. A lot of the time, I mean, you tell me what you think, because I kind of have this, like, I have these like two sides of recovery, which is like, I know that I can't do this alone, so I do need people in order to do this. But then in the same vein, or in the same messaging I get is, and I even heard, my sponsor, John, who died, he was like, you are responsible for your recovery, nobody else. Like, you're it. And I was just, and I would hear that stuff and I would feel very empowered by that. But in the same, the very next whatever time I talked to him, he's like, you really got to call on people.
Right.
I'm like, so which one is it, motherfucker? Like, which one are you talking about? Which one is it? So how do you feel about that kind of mixed messaging? What do you think about that?
Yeah, there's so much mixed messaging in life and in all in recovery in all of this. I take it to be, you can use your resources, you can accept help, you can seek help, but no one or nothing else can make you sober, and no one or nothing else can make you drink. Like that is your decision alone. Now you can resort to other people and have different people you consult with, and as I said, different resources, but at the end of the day, you are the one that is making that decision. So yeah, it's a paradox, but it's also just finding that balance of what are the types of people that you're going to be around. Who do you want to be? Is that the type of people that you're looking to for advice, or that you're hanging out with, or just figuring out where and what you're doing in your life, with whom and where, and what type of life you want to live, and then doing that.
Yeah, I think
I mean,
I talk about it in the reading, which is like we definitely need.
I can see where it's
Oh,
confusing, but yeah.
sorry, we were you cut off. Sorry, I totally sounded like I was interrupting you. I thought you were done speaking.
No, I think it was delayed for a second.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
done. I'm
okay.
done. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's like I tried to do it in the reading, like to say like, we do need others. There is a,
Mhm.
in the messaging, we can't heal, the
A
sick
sick
mind with
brain
the
can't
same
heal a
sick
sick brain.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I
That's
need, what's that?
keep going. I have something crazy to share after. No, no, no,
Okay.
no. I was mouthing something to you, not
Oh, okay.
talking. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So I think, we still need other people in general. I know that for me, it was a very valuable experience, but they're just there to, if you're getting into to recovery, quote unquote, and you are looking at your counselor, your therapist, your sponsor, or even a good friend for that matter, if you're looking to them to kind of give you the answers about what to do and how to do it, you're doing it wrong, right? But
Mm.
one of the things that I understood about the recovery journey anyway is that these people are just beacons. They're just signposts, right? They're they're not the they're the light, not the source of the light, let's just say, right? And so
Mhm.
I think that's the idea, is that they're just there to kind of guide the way a little bit. So that's the thing for me, is that I really I was given somebody as an example to follow, and it was up to me whether I was going to go dig for the gold
Mhm.
or that follow that path
Mhm.
that they were kind of laying out. And if I didn't like what they did or how they did it or what they were doing or the results that they were getting, I didn't have to do those things, but I at some point understood that it was up to me to go do it. And I, for the
Mhm.
longest time, I really did. I just wanted to be like, I just wanted to walk into a fucking room, walk into a counselor and say, tell me what the fuck to do, because I've run out of
Yeah.
options and I don't know what to do anymore, but I want it to be different. So can you just tell me what the
Mhm.
hell to do? And that's just not how it works. God, I wish it did. But it just doesn't. So at what point did you kind of turn the corner on that? At what point? I know I was reading in your book at one, you talked about you were talking with a therapist and he was trying to convince you that you're not going to be able to continue drinking and live the life that you want to live. That, by the way,
Mhm.
most people in your situation have to put it down, right? Like have to stop drinking. Abstinence is probably your best bet, kind of a thing. So was that the moment, or was there a moment maybe after that helped you kind of turn the corner on how you were going to be able to move forward?
That's such a good question. I mean, I my therapist did say that, and I could not hear it at that point, whenever that was. I said, well, I'm never going to stop drinking completely, so we can figure something else out. I really thought that if I improved my mental health, then my drinking would get better. But it just reminded me when you said like going to a counselor and asking them to fix everything. That's kind of what I was doing. And then he was giving me suggestions and I wasn't taking them. Right. So go ahead.
Well, I just say, so what was the result? The result is like you
Right.
have more pain. Like the result was
Right.
what?
Right.
Yeah.
So no, I was just saying it's kind of, again, that paradox of like, help me. And then they do say something that could help, and I'm still not doing it. And yet I'm expecting, I went to him week after week, and he had been gently suggesting it. And I just told him, and he said, I just noticed that like these chaotic, I always had these just drama, these crazy things that happen. And he's like, they usually happen when you're drinking. And I'm like, huh. But I'm also drinking all
Correlation,
the
I
time.
can't hear.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
does not compute. No, but eventually I did go to a meeting, and I just thought no one understood me, blah, blah, blah. But I heard enough, or I looked for enough resemblance in me and those people, and I didn't have anywhere else to go, and I was out of ideas. And there was, and I've talked about this too, but there was like that tiny part of me that was like, what if I am an alcoholic, and what if that means I can get better because there's a solution, right? Because I hadn't considered that before. And so I'll read a little bit from my book, because, I had that moment of clarity and a few more rock bottom moments. And I say, something within me and something without said enough is enough. I finally recognized the utter insanity of my lifestyle and realized that no matter how I spun my stories, unsuccessfully justifying my actions, or how long I sat in my room reading self-help books, a sick brain could not heal a sick brain. Sometimes it takes true desperation to move the needle. I see this difficult time in my life as a gift. I don't know that I would have sought help had I not sunk this low, because on that day, I saw something different in the mirror. I saw complete and utter defeat. Our most painful moments can become catalysts to change and pathways to what? Pathways to freedom. So It's interesting that I tied that in. Yeah. It's interesting that, right, and of course I didn't know that until later. But it's crazy how feeling so low and feeling like you have no choices and nothing left can then lead to freedom, right?
Yeah. And that's exactly where I think at some point you're able to hear your counselor, maybe in retrospect or in, down the road, you kind of like realize, like, oh shit, like this is what they were really trying to tell me. But there's a point where you wake up. There's a point where you actually see like, oh, this is the path that I should have been on, and I didn't take it. And so, and I did a lot of that same stuff. I've been in the room since I was 15 years old. I was in drug treatment at 15 years old. There's not a lot of people I knew, like it's clear that I had a problem now.
Right,
I see it.
Right. Now.
And that I should have been doing this all along. But again, I thought I knew some shit. I thought I had some stuff figured out. I didn't have to listen to, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
you don't know my life.
But they do. Right. That's the worst part is that pretty much a lot of people do. And it's like, for me, we talk about it a lot, which is like, that moment of, clarity where you get as an alcoholic, you're like realize like, oh shit, I'm an alcoholic. But the fact is like I was the last one to know. Like everybody else knew it. Everybody else knew Carl had a problem with drugs and alcohol, but Carl didn't know until much later. So I guess once you do understand that, I think the hardest part that I've ever had to deal with is in recovery, which is the knowledge of my condition and the lack of motivation to do anything about it, right? Because I don't want to go to that meeting. I don't want to talk to that person. I don't want to read the work. I don't want to read the books, and I don't want to go to a therapist, and I don't. There's so many things I don't want to do. But just I want to state for the record to the listeners, if you're listening, the dog poop is picked up and the dishes have been put away before we started this podcast.
What about
Still
the white
things
sock?
I don't want to do. Oh yeah, totally done. It's stiff at the moment, but we'll talk about that later. So, but that's the thing is there's that little weird spot, and this is where the real attitude of nobody else is coming to save you really comes in. How did you overcome that? Because clearly your book and the work and the efforts that you put in, I see us as very similar. We did a lot of this like internalizing, and like we really needed to see it, and we got clarity, and then we're okay. You did actually more education than I did. So I mean, you actually started to build a life around it. I just went back to my old tools, but so how is it that you like went that far or that deep? Like, what was the motivation there? Like, what was the kind of the catalyst for you to like really dig in and get clarity on yourself? What was that?
In terms of the book, or just in general, or
I'm talking Lindsey. I'm talking like to wake up and look Lindsey in the mirror and feel good about it, and then actually go from, fitting, getting your basic needs met, going to a meeting, reading the
Right.
book, going to college, getting, whatever,
Yeah.
growing beyond that, doing yoga and painting with pigs and shit. Like what was the catalyst? What drove that?
And it's funny because when I sit here hearing that, if I think about my brain 10 or so years ago, I wouldn't even be able to understand what you were saying and think about it as my life. Like not any of it. It's all completely unrecognizable. None of this was in my life,
Yeah, me too.
So when I look back, I'm like, how did that happen? But of course, entering sobriety was the launching pad for that. And really just, even though I was the one making the decisions, having the willingness to say, my decisions up till this point haven't been very good. And I'm going to see how other people made their decisions and see if someone can show me something that might improve my life. I didn't know it was going to improve or transform in the level that it did. I was just trying to live. But then I realized to live, I, for some reason, am a type of person who has to undergo continuous self-examination and like evolution and creation over and over. And I need to keep creating and I need to put things out in the world. And that is what now keeps me alive, right? And without that, and I think that's probably what you and I and a lot of us out there were trying to get to all along, but didn't have the tools or resources or the constructs around us to do that. And so our sensitive souls turn to something very easy to kind of drown those urges and impulses of like, what am I doing with my life? And so once I got sober, it was really hard because my brain was not satisfied with the status quo, right? Mm-hmm. So, I was hospitalized for a major depressive episode. I did a lot of therapy, a lot of, outpatient treatment, cognitive behavioral therapy, psychoanalysis, everything, just to be like, how can I, now that I'm sober, how can I function in this world, in this body, in this mind, in this. So, I think I was guided along. I talk about that moment of clarity in my book. And then, I just want to share something else, because my moment of clarity was like the mirror moment is one that I remember. I think it doesn't have to be like that. It can be seeds that were planted again, like by my therapist and things that we do later. But I have to be the one that listens to it. So I say, often in crazy making situations, be it a toxic relationship, addiction, or unhealthy living situation, we experience a moment of clarity amidst the madness. Even if only a blip or glitch, it is enough to ask ourselves, what in the actual F am I doing? Pay attention to these feelings, these windows of clarity. We can choose whether to listen or not, but the universe will inevitably tug for our attention, usually gently. Imagine holding onto a rope so tightly that your knuckles turn white and your hands blister. The rest of your body sacrificing all its systems to maintain your strength. Now imagine letting go. This is what it feels like to relinquish our false sense of control and let in a higher source of help. So there can be a million people around you telling you, let go of the rope, let go of the rope, let go of the rope. But I was the one who had to decide to do that. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like how it happened. Why it happened is still a mystery to me. But I try my best to explain those little moments that I do understand and what I did with that information to help myself.
Yeah, I think, I reached out, quote unquote. I prayed hard to God, really, and I was an athist. So there you go. There, even at the time when I prayed, I was definitely an atheist, and then. And I literally wanted to take credit for everything after that too, And that was the other thing. Is I was like, oh, you know what? Like I didn't do any of that shit. I don't know how I was guided, honestly. But I do know what you're talking about. That moment you look in the mirror and you say, how the fuck did I get here? And why? And like, now what do I do? You know? And it's a big deal. It really is. But what happened is you got a lot of grace to deal with it. You know, you get that moment, and then if you don't capitalize on it, or if you just poo-poo it and you just like go, you know what, like, screw it. I'm gonna go sit at the bar and think this through. You're not gonna get very far if that's kind of what you do. A lot of what happens after that is a lot of action that we're unaware that it's really action. And you know, we have to ask ourselves if this is the case, if this is the truth about myself, and you do recognize it and you realize it, and you're crying out and you're saying, I got to stop this. You have to ask yourself on that next moment, what are my hands and feet doing now? Like, where am I headed now? Am I literally going back to my old life, or am I trying to work towards a new one? And a lot of the times, you know, I probably did have a lot of crisis or a lot of like internal what the fuck moments, but I never capitalized on it. And only in this last time did I really set out with a dogged persistence that I was going to change what was going to happen from that moment on. And I had to hold on all the way through. And it was scary. It really was. I mean, as much as I hate to admit that I was a sensitive bitch, as you call me, I know you didn't say those words, but it's true. I am a person who desires depth, weight, emotional resonance. Like, I want to feel connected in the world, and I want to feel alive in it. And if I can't, then I'll just go numb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
And so I
what
do
gave
understand.
you that doggedness?
That I think a lot of it was
This time
was the resignation or the suicidal commitment, because I was like, I was done. I was like, you know what? And then I thought, like, if I'm willing to commit suicide over this, then I should be willing to go further than that and try the other direction first. What more can I do? And again, that learned helplessness plays a role in that. We just talk about, because I think that I can't be any better. I think that I'm just a piece of shit, so I'm just going to continue to be a piece of shit. And you really have to work to overcome that. And a lot of the times what that means is isolating yourself away from that old pattern of life, putting yourself into new ideas and perspectives, therapists, counselors, psychotherapists, treatment center, folks, recovery folks, sponsorship, etc. The list goes on, right? You have to, in order to acquire new ideas, you have to put yourself in positions in new streams of life. Yeah. So, and it literally doesn't, like you said, I can't imagine how I got here, right? Like, oh my God, 10 years, and it's been like I'm painting with pigs. Okay, I couldn't
literally,
imagine.
no, literally.
Yeah.
Why would I ever want to do that? And they had alcohol there, and I didn't drink it.
Yeah, of course. Like, everybody else is shit-faced laughing at the pigs, and you're like, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, that's the craziest part of this whole story.
Yeah. So you have to ask yourself, like, how do you get here? It's like, I guess the summary would be like what they talk about in the rooms a lot in 12-step recovery is, is opposite action, right? Is contrary action. That's the idea. It's like doing everything against what you would normally do.
Yeah, right? Truly.
So what did we learn about ourselves in this other than Carl's a bitch? What did we learn?
I know that's kind
ourselves?
of becoming, like, if you need to change the title, you can. Between that and painting with pigs, your choice.
Go painting pigs. Carl's a bitch.
No, that is not what I'm saying. I hope that do you need therapy for our podcast?
I do.
As well as the improvs.
Would you like
Click here
therapy with this podcast? Visit BetterHelp. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't forget our yeah. So
okay.
What do you think? What have we learned?
what have we learned? We've learned that by taking control of our decisions, we're actually given an opportunity to access more freedom, not less.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to come from within. Why would somebody else be able to give me freedom?
They're coming to take you away.
They are. So hold on. I dialed 911 right before this.
I swear.
This is,
Oh
I
my God.
really don't think it's as often as when we're on the podcast, though.
No, I really do think like you do not notice like how often that it happens. I used to live like in this city, right? And
Yeah.
it was like, well, not city, Brainerd, but that's where all the police started from, basically. And they had to travel through there. It happened so much.
Oh, yeah, there is a police station. I forgot.
Yeah. And
there is Rockville Police Stations right there. Yeah, duh. I'll figure it out.
So they just launch into sirens blazing as soon as they love, dude. You know those dudes. That's the first thing they do. Like they can't wait to hit the siren. They're like,
they love the show.
I am important.
Oh,
okay, go ahead. It's gone.
Yeah, have they come to take me away?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess what I was saying was this taking control and doing things that might seem routine or lame because someone else is telling us to do them. Like how can taking opposite action and taking others' advice give me freedom? That sounds very counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
But also waiting on somebody else to come rescue you is just as crazy a notion of, oh, that's going to give me freedom, because that's not depending on someone else for my emotional sobriety, the term that you used earlier from Dr. Alan Berger. So I think that when you can find that freedom from within, and you're not getting it from a person, and you're not getting it from a drink, and you're not getting it from anything that can let you down, then it's the most satisfying high you will ever experience.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree?
So you tell me I still get to get high?
Yes. It's a natural high.
Then I'm in.
It's a natural high, Carl. It's a natural high.
I do agree 100%. Like, but the one thing I'm going to add, and it comes from, again, I can't help that I am 12-step based. That was my journey. That's where I started. So one of the things that they talk about in the promises, and that I always have to remind myself, is they talk about a new freedom and a new happiness, right? Mm-hmm. And I always just kind of skip it over because I think I know what happiness is. I know what freedom is. And, and the truth is they said there's a word in front of that. It's new. It's a new freedom and new happiness. And that basically means it's a new freedom and a new happiness that I never have experienced before. So it's a new kind of freedom, I guess, is what they really should say. Should have put a new kind, because that would have kind of clarified it for me.
New brand.
It's just like, and the things that they say in recovery too, like, you gave me a life beyond my wildest dreams, right? Which is, again, when you're using and drinking, your wildest dreams are, well, my wildest dreams are, 6 naked women in a hot tub and a bunch of, meth and alcohol around. I mean, that's like my wildest dreams, right? So what they really should mean, they really should, like, you will redefine what it means.
Correct.
Right? Correct. To have a quality, fruitful life that you enjoy and that allows you to do things you never imagined possible. And that's the reality of recovery in a sense. So for me, that new freedom and new happiness is like, I didn't understand what freedom really was in the first
Right.
place, my definition of freedom was pretty jacked. Again, my freedom for lifestyle was, the freedom to drink as much as I
Right.
wanted, whenever I
Right.
wanted, and how I wanted. That's my freedom, right?
It's kind of reminds me of like Rebels with a Cause episode that we did, where we
Yeah,
thought we were like so free and no one's going to tell us what to do. Like I used to wear freedom like a bat. I said to everyone, I do whatever I want, whenever I want. No one's going to tell me anything different. And that was like my slogan for Lindsey. And yeah, I've heard so many people in meetings in the rooms saying like, this program's given me a life beyond my wildest dreams, and none of the things that I thought that I wanted when I came in here. Right.
Exactly.
Like it totally redefines.
Yeah.
I didn't know I would want to paint with pigs. Who knows that?
I didn't know I would enjoy being a little bitch either. So just goes all the way
I'm
around.
never gonna, Carl. We'll talk about your Cinderella complex later, offline.
But the truth is this: is that once I understood that I was now operating under different conditions, and that I would redefine basically what freedom was and be able to, and then redefine what that happiness was, because again, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the hard part, is like a lot of the times these promises and this like idea of freedom that we get in recovery is really diluted by our previous lifestyle, and we just have no concept of it. So we have to remain open-minded to the idea that, that maybe what everybody else is saying is actually true. Maybe the counselor is right. Maybe the therapist is onto something when he says abstinence might be your only option. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because what happens is we suddenly get, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, we get introduced to a lifestyle and the choices that we make within that lifestyle that allow for greater freedoms that maybe we didn't understand that we could have, and that we might actually really enjoy doing, right? Again, painting with pigs and being a little bitch. So I do love being a little bitch. I love feeling shit. Don't get me wrong. I love a good cry like anybody else, and I got the freedom to do that today.
Yes, you do.
So,
We're sensitive
thank
souls.
you so much, Lindsey. Thank you. You're so trusting and loving.
Stop. No, but we are. We're sensitive souls. We're sensitive. No, something's not being expressed that wants to be, and I think that's why we turn to alcohol and drugs.
I fully embrace that comment for sure, because that's exactly, like, nowadays I actually live more out loud, and I don't, and that I think is one of my biggest reasons for not wanting to reach for a drink, relapse, suppress, evade.
Isn't
whatever
that
it is that I do.
interesting?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I fully attribute my ability to live sober with my ability to speak honestly, openly, and and how I feel, so yeah.
Absolutely.
Good point. That's what we learned today, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
So put your slippers back on and take off that sweater and get the fuck out the door. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Oh boy, I can't top that one. Trying to think of something clever. I don't got nothing.
Whatever.
So what do you say? What do you say? What do you say to all the boys and girls? Or was that your finishing thought?
No, I just finish how we normally finish, which, I would like the people to like, subscribe, and don't forget to buy the books. Buying the books is really important because it helps us to continue doing what we do. It really gives us, if you can consider, this is the vehicle, the buying the book is the fuel. So that really helps us to do, to drive this vehicle. So by all means, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your peeps, share it with people who you think would enjoy this kind of, insanity. Lindsey, do you have any parting words, or are you doing anything fun coming up?
Well, on that note, if you're like Carl and I, or feel yourself to be creative and want to write your own book, I am teaching a class.
You can't write your own book. You're not. That's not possible.
That's what I thought. You're like my inner voice 5 years ago.
Yeah,
the
me
inner
too.
critic, which I
Me
will
too.
talk about in the class. Nice to meet you. So I have a virtual offering. So no matter where you are, you can join. It is Saturday, July 12th at 11:30 Eastern time on Zoom through an organization called the Writers Center. It's 2 hours and it's just kind of a high level view of what that process looks like. So it's not so scary and big. And, I think everyone has a book in them or a project or a piece. So it's a great, if it's something you've been thinking about, it's a great entry point to that.
So you really walk somebody through from like soup to nuts, A to Z, like what the process and entirety would be like. And that's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. So it takes away the scaries of all that.
Yeah.
Process. Yeah. That's cool. All right, yo. So what do we really now? What is our magic catchphrases?
What's the real?
No.
Mine?
Yeah.
Mine is trust your truth.
And mine is stay active, stay sober. See ya.
Peace.
Peace. Later.
Soberpod.com. Yeah. It was a sight to see him. Breakfast with Sprite and Seagrams. Wrestling with my vices, exercising my demons. My blessings were blocked, so I never got the message. I'm stressing, I'm only 12 steps from an exit. Regret it, because my imperfections were perfected. I ain't run from it, I accept it and rep it. It's a badge to me, good stories come from a tragedy. And when you survive, the glory will come in Act 3. The wait's over, 366 days sober. Morning affirmations that can start the day for you. Use my favorite bookmark for a placeholder. Finish when the day's over. Okay. Yeah, sober pod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.